live on the Facebook, and we are Tristan Les. Just texted him. He's coming shortly, so you're not going to just be stuck with me again and Nick. But we are back for another weekly episode of video content, specifically coming from our good friend now, Nick Niehaus, in the Business Video School. This has become an integral and consistent piece of our week because it has been so valuable and so well received, and so many of us need so much of this that we just want to keep bringing it to you. And so this week is no different. We are going to be talking about the ever-invasive, the topic that is always top of mind with all of you, that everybody asks, which is, what the hell do I talk about when I'm doing video? Nick, what do we talk about when we're doing video? Welcome back, brother.
Yeah, well, glad to be here. As always, we're making a habit on, I guess, Thursdays moving forward, we're doing this, right?
Good point. And so going forward, folks, we've flopped days. We did commit to Nick in the video school every Thursday, same time, same bat place. So 2 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Central, that's 5 Eastern, and 3 o'clock Mountain. And look who's joined us, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Let's all stand. Let's all rise. Tristan Ahumada is here.
Round of applause.
Oh, yay! Woo!
Welcome, T. We were just we got some really unique locations this week. It's kind of fun.
Really?
Debbie Isaacs is actually in Central Park right now, New York.
Whoa!
How cool is that?
I love that.
Yeah, I thought so too. So, all right, I've already introed Nick. Yeah. Take it away. We're going to talk about video topics, and Tristan and I are going to be the peanut gallery behind you.
Cool. Well, I'm hoping you guys can chime in a lot on this one, because I do think you have plenty to share here. So, yeah, to get started, I mean, I think I may have shown this graph before, but I really liked showing this because this is basically a survey of the people who use Facebook and why they said they spend time on Facebook, which I think is really helpful to understand. And really the big thing to look at here is it's not all the way until number 4 that they mention anything to do with business whatsoever, right? So number 1 by far is people are trying to stay in contact with friends and family. That's predominantly why they're there. Next comes to be entertained. So they want to see their friends and family. They want to have some fun. They want to be entertained. Then they want to get the news. And then finally, maybe they want to hear about your business, right? So I think that, as we go through this today, you're going to see a lot of what we're recommending reflected by this survey, in the sense that, what really works, what really attracts people to you and your brand and your business is not necessarily talking specifically about your business all the time. So I think most people probably know that at this point, but it's always a good reminder to get things started, right? So Jeff, I definitely want to get your take on this, because I know you talk about this rule all the time, the 80-20 rule. And so I think we have slightly different kind of takes on it, but I think they're both pretty applicable here. So this is kind of a good rule overall, right? So just to think in terms of, like, if I'm going to make something, so if I'm going to create a content calendar, if I'm just going to kind of create some random videos over the next few weeks, how often should I be promoting my business versus trying to deliver value? And so that's my version of the 80-20 rule. So I always say that 80% of the time you should be delivering value, right? So that could mean, you can kind of interpret that 2 different ways. Either 4 out of every 5 videos you make should just be about delivering value. So things like entertaining, educating, that kind of stuff. And then 20% of your videos are promotional, right? So that's when you're actually talking about what you do for a living and basically giving people reasons that they should want to hire you. The other spin on the 80-20 rule would also be if you're maybe doing longer form content. So things like webinars, I think, are actually a good example. You want to also think in terms of 80% should be value if you want to use 20% to be promotional. So if you do want to have a pitch, or if you want to say something about how somebody can hire you, you should still spend 80% of your time probably providing value. And obviously in the form of like a webinar, that would be, educational value. And then you essentially earn the right then to talk about your business and promote yourself. So that's just kind of a good introduction rule. But Jeff, you have kind of a slight variation on that for the 80-20 rule. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I didn't invent this rule. I learned it from some very high level marketing people, and the Gary V's even talk about, document, don't create, and get out of your own way. Like, people aren't going, and your first slide, Nick, represented that. Like, they don't go to Facebook or Instagram or any of these social platforms to be vomited on about your business. They're not really interested in your statistics and the awards that you won. And frankly, most people aren't going there with the need of even buying a home. And so that's not why they're there. And so give them what they want. And at the end of the day, they want to be entertained. They want to kind of be immersed into your life. They want to know more about you. And it's such a great opportunity to share who you are. And so I always tell people, and personally, I believe it's not even 80-20. I practice more like a 90-10, maybe even 95-5, because I've just learned what my audience wants. I pay attention to the analytics on the social sites, and I pay attention to which posts perform better. And what performs better is when I share my kids. What performs better is when I share my travel. What performs better is when I share my TikToks. That's what people want. And at the end of the day, I want to be seen more often. And so I'm delivering what my audience wants and giving them personal, authentic content. It wins. I'm winning as a result of that. And that's what I preach.
No, it's great. I think, what do you guys think about thinking of it this way? Because I was just kind of, as you're talking, thinking about this, is like, in a sense, you know, we talk about obviously video and social media. It's all about building relationships. And I almost think of it as like, it should all be about building relationships, and the promotional stuff is only enough to remind people what you do for a living and how they can hire you. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it, right? Because for Jeff, I mean, you talk about it a lot, that like, you hardly, I mean, you really don't talk, I mean, I don't see you ever talk about mortgages, if I'm being honest, right? And like, you even sometimes get to the point where people are like, wait, what is it you do? Or like, what do you sell? And like, I think that's good, right? Because you want people to be drawn to you for who you are and what you stand for. And then, you know, the promotional stuff's just kind of there to say, hey, by the way, here's what I do. And if you want to, you know, if you need help in that area, here's how I can help you out. So I think that's, what do you think? Is that kind of how you approach it, Jeff? Or?
Yeah. And so for me, I have an advantage. I've been in the business 20 years. So most of my people know what I do. So I don't have to cram it down their throat, but a part of my brand has been what I wear. So I now wear t-shirts and hats all the time, which is my subtle branding. It's a reminder that even though I'm never talking about it, I'm always wearing a hat that represents a part of my brand, that either reminds you that I do mortgages or tells you straight up, it says my company name on it. And I just believe in doing it subtly. I just know that's what my audience wants. And I put myself in their shoes. When I go to when I go to Facebook and I see somebody just constantly talking about their business, it's like, oh, stop already. I'm done with it. And then I stop following. And that's just the reality of it. And you should share business content. You absolutely should. I'm a far exception on that. But just make it no more than about 20% of what you're creating. And if all of your content every single week, you find that it's all business content, it may not be that you're just oversharing business content. It just means you're not sharing enough personal content. So get in the habit of creating more personal content to override the business content.
Cool. Cool. Well, so I have kind of a question for the viewers, because I am curious what people are going to say to this. So, you know, we get all the time people asking us kind of what to talk about in their videos and what their topic should be. And that's obviously what our whole point of this presentation is. So here's my question for you, though. And please, you know, comment if you do get a chance in the chat, is, you know, what exactly are you hoping that we're going to tell you today? So like, are you looking for the answer that just says, hey, go talk about these 3 specific topics and just talk about them all the time? Or are you looking for more of kind of an overall approach or rule to use to determine these yourself? I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to give you some of both today. So depending on which one of those camps you kind of fall into, you will get something from this presentation. But that's, you know, I'm always kind of curious about that, because we get people all the time asking this, right? Like, what should I talk about in my videos? What are the topics? How do I get people to care about my content? And I just, you know, I'm starting to get the sense that there is no blanket answer to that, right? Like there definitely are going to be differences between different people and the kinds of content they should create. So we're going to give you both today, but I actually wanted to start on that front a little bit, because I think the first thing you got to ask yourself before you get into like, what am I going to make, is you got to ask yourself, who is going to see the content? Who am I trying to attract, right? Because I think we're in the middle of a shift. It's already started to happen, but you know, if you look at kind of the early internet, or, you know, going back 10 years or whatever, there was a lot less influencers. It was a lot harder to become an influencer. And there was maybe kind of some better rules for it. You know, it was more about just being flamboyant and entertaining and just kind of grabbing people's eyeballs, versus now these tools have all gotten so powerful. I mean, we have 4K video cameras in our pocket we're all walking around with. And that means it's much more accessible to people, but it also means we're seeing a lot more kind of nuance, right? So we're seeing people that are being seen as being really good or making really great content, but around really specific topics. And I think that's kind of the next phase here is you're going to see people start to dominate their niche by being very intentional about the things they're talking about. So you got to start with the audience, right? You got to know who you're trying to attract, because if you try to attract everyone, I think that phase is gone, right? I mean, that was kind of early days. I mean, you know, even somebody like Gary Vee might be a good example of somebody who kind of attracted the entire business audience. And I don't think we're going to see a lot of people be able to imitate that exact approach. So instead, you got to start with these customer profiles. I think this is really important. This is a step that a lot of people are not going to take, but I will tell you, if you do this, and when we've done this with people in their businesses in the past, your future, you know, coming up with ideas for your content, coming up with the topics you're going to focus on will be substantially easier if you're intentional about who you're trying to attract, right? So the first step, I think, in my mind, and again, a lot of people aren't going to do this, I understand that, but the first thing you should really try to do is put together what's called a customer avatar, or you can think of it as a customer profile. And the idea here is that you want to know as much as you can about the person who's going to end up working with you, right? Because, you know, back to kind of what Jeff was talking about with being focused on, you know, creating like personal content stuff where people get to know you personally, you want to think about like, who is that going to draw in? And the more I know who it's going to draw in the first place, or the more I can choose who I'm going to attract, the more specific I can be about the kinds of content I'm going to make, right? So I use myself as an example all the time for this. I mean, we specialize in working specifically with real estate agents, you know, like 90+% of our business is with real estate agents. And so over the past few years, like everything we've done has been about helping agents, right? So understanding their business, understanding their pain points. Like I've never been a real estate agent, so everything I know about the industry comes from having worked with them and asked them questions. And like, you know, I've literally just done like dozens and dozens of interviews where I just try to get to know people in this industry. And as a result, all of our content really started to hone in on addressing the particular problems and also talking about the particular interest that that ideal customer has. So like this what you see on the screen right now, like these are just some of the questions you can try to answer that will give you ideas for your content. In particular, the one half of this that I'd really encourage you to focus on is what we call psychographic information. So that's stuff that goes into how someone thinks. It's much more about their personality. So it's things like, you know, for this ideal customer that you want to attract to your business, like what are their pain points? What are some of the things that they struggle with, you know? Are those things that you could give them useful advice on? If they're not, then don't talk about them. Don't make things up. But if they are, then those might be good topics, right? Same thing for interests. I mean, I think Jeff, you're a great example of this, right? Is like, you're always talking about the things that you're passionate about that aren't mortgages, right? So you're talking about, and I know like health and fitness are a big one for you, right? So, you know, what are those interests? What are the things that your customers like really spend their time and their money and their energy focusing on? And if you have overlap, again, that's the key here, right? Is if you have overlap, you're going to want to come back to those topics. So I think that's really where this needs to come from, is really digging in and understanding who that ideal customer is first. Now, granted, we are in the second half of this going to give you just a big list of topics you can focus on, right? A whole bunch of ideas for videos. But here's the thing, is I want you to look at that list, and there's probably at least 25 different ideas for videos, or at least 20 or so. I don't want you to write all of them down, because I don't think that's the point of this presentation. The point is, I want you right now, even if you got some scrap paper or something at home, maybe write down, you know, a couple of the interests or pain points of the people that you really like to work with. What are some things you see come up very often? And then use that lens to decide which of the topics we end up listing for you are going to be your topics. And like this screen here is really kind of sums this all up for you. You want to be thinking about the ideal customer, what are they struggling with, or what are they interested in? And then yourself, and what have you in the past struggled with, and what are you currently interested in? And then where do those overlap, right? So, I mean, let me ask you this, Jeff, because we were talking about, you know, your kind of spin on this before, but since you talk about these things, like how often do these kind of topics that you keep coming back to, how often do they come up when you end up getting a client? So somebody's attracted to their business, they want to start having a conversation, like Like, do they bring these things up? Are they part of the relationship you have with them, or how does that end up like impacting that part?
So what it is, and this is brings up a good point for somebody in the chat who Leon said something about, less garbage, more useful things, discipline for content. The thing is, the thing you have to do is you have to set your own, your own preferences and your own feelings about things aside. I don't go to social media to scroll mindlessly, but a lot of our audience does. And so stop thinking about what you want and start thinking about what they want. And the reality is, because believe me, my own family, my wife, my kids, they question me all the time. Dad, nobody cares about that. Well, the truth is they actually do. And there are people out there that do care. And so when I share things like, which I never have done my entire life until the last few years, is, for example, I'm very big into fitness and I'm a big runner and I love to work out and I love to eat healthy. And what I came to find out was I started sharing that stuff and people consumed it. There's a lot of people that said, shut up, I don't care. But that's okay. They're just not going to follow that. But the people that did became raving fans and they paid even closer attention to me. And again, remember this game of social media, which is an algorithm game. So those people that engage my stuff more often because they like that, one of those pillars of content, I'm showing up in their feed more consistently. And so when it comes time where they need a mortgage or they need to buy a home or a friend needs to buy a home or needs a mortgage or their family or their neighbor, people are, how it is when you do a post on social media and you say, hey, need a plumber, give me a recommendation. You get like 50 responses. Like, as human nature, people just want to help. And people really want to help people they like. And so it's just people come out of the woodwork. So if you give them something, this is exactly how I work in business. I teach realtors. I'm a mortgage guy. I teach realtors how to elevate their social media game and how to do better video. As a result of me giving to them, they want to give back. I have people call me all the time saying, I want to do business with you. And if you're a realtor, think about that. Like, if you're giving your audience something relevant that you're passionate about, that you are a relative expert on, that you can share, people are going to follow you more often. They're going to like you and they're going to want to give back. This is how it works. This is how the content game works. So stop thinking about what you want and start thinking about what they want. Get out of your own way and share more of your life, because that's what's more interesting. And we'll get a little bit deeper. And real quick, Nick, I want to address one question that we're not going to be talking about, which is how to keep it short, under 1 minute. The answer to that is very simple. Prepare, script. That way, because if you go into a video and you have this idea in your head and you just get on there, you're going to talk. Even though you're scared to death of the camera, you're going to talk, you're going to vomit, you're just going to ramble. That's where you lose people. But if you can get on video prepared with bullet point scripts of exactly what you want to talk about, and you lead in with a good hook, that is how you deliver quality video content that will hold people's attention.
Right.
Guys, I want to jump in on this because what Jeff said in regards to creating content is you actually have to plan it out. And recently, I think over the last 2 days, I unshared your screen, Nick, because Facebook released, hold on, my dog's pretending to bark. Stop, please.
Yeah.
No, don't do it. Recently, Facebook created this. This is from Facebook. You can see at the very bottom there. It says Facebook on the bottom right. They created this content calendar for you, and it's a PDF. So I'll put the link up on the right on the chat. You can download it, or I'll send it to Nick. Nick, you can send it out to people. Recently, they released this out so you can say, okay, what's the date? Let's outline this really well. Put the date. Let's put the theme, right? Now that I know who I'm going to target, now that I know what my message is going to be for my audience, what's the theme, right? Next, what should my caption be? Visual description, format, is it going to be a static post, like just a picture, or is it going to be a video, right? And then what platform, Facebook or Instagram or TikTok? I'm sure Facebook didn't create this so you can use TikTok, but you can put TikTok in there anyway. But the idea is, as you fill this out, now you don't have to think too much as to, well, what was I going to do? How was I going to do this? You just go on this and you start now itemizing the things, the ideas you have, and you start laying them out on your calendar. This way, you can have a clear idea as to when you're going to do things. And I think that's what's needed, Nick.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think that we all want the shortcuts. I get that, right? Like we just want to be told what to do and then it's going to go work. And every now and then like something like that emerges and everybody goes and does it. And then once everybody does it, it doesn't work anymore, right? So, it's really the discipline that separates the people that get consistent results from this stuff than, from the people that get maybe a flash in the pan once. And that's a great point when both of you are making, which is, the more you prepare, the more you know what you're going to be talking about, the more likely you are to actually get results. And with that content calendar, I think that also reinforces a really important point here, which is you have to be consistent, right? Like you got to keep showing up over and over again. Actually, that leads really well into the next part of this I want to talk about, which is, once you've really figured out what that audience wants to see and you're really catering to those people, you're going to choose themes. And so I wanted to, again, ask Jeff to chime in here because, Jeff, I know you talk about this as content pillars. So can you tell us, talk to me a little bit about that concept of kind of choosing these themes or pillars that you're always coming back to?
Yeah, so what I figured out was that, I shouldn't say necessarily figured out. You never figured this out. It's constantly learning. You're constantly evolving. But try to remain somewhat consistent with your content so people know what they're getting from you, because that's really the goal here. And so I've just created pillars of content that I either enjoy talking about or I'm very passionate about. And I say you should have at least 3 pillars. I have 5. I call them 5 pillars. Number one is your business. That's absolutely a pillar that you're going to have in your content. And everyone's going to have that. Everyone's also going to have family, personal life, travel, all the things you do, hobbies, those kind of things. That encompasses one pillar. You're naturally going to document your life, share more of that stuff, but then find a third pillar, a fourth, a fifth, whatever. For me, it's about video and social because I'm very, very passionate about it. I kind of tie it back to business, but it's coming from value. It's coming from contribution. It's educational for a lot of people. My second non-business, non-personal is fitness and diet. I'm very passionate about it. So I put out I'm always working out, or I'm always, coming up with a new recipe that I need to eat because I eat healthy. So I like to share that stuff. That's another pillar. And then my last one is entrepreneurship, leadership. I've been in a leadership role for almost 20 years. So I have a lot of experience and a lot of things to share. And I know there's a lot of people in a similar role as me that want to learn about that or want to hear some advice. I learn a lot from Tristan in that regard, and other mentors that I have in the business. And so I just like to regurgitate it to my audience. And so that's what I do with my pillars. I think it's important for all of you. Like Nick said, you take out that pen and the paper and you figure out what are your pillars. And don't overthink it. Like, what are you already doing in your life? What are you already passionate about? What are your hobbies? What are the things that you're doing on a consistent basis that all you need to do, flip the camera on and create more content around it? That will attract more eyeballs. Real quick. Anna asked what was pillar number 3. I said business, personal, just all encompassing, video, social, fitness, diet, and entrepreneurship, leadership, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I love that concept because ultimately, I think we are obviously talking about video that gets engagement today, but what I think you want to think about is not so much just your total engagement, but rather your engagement with the right people. I think, you could easily, let's say you get 100 likes or, whatever on an average video. And then the next week you get 100 likes, but it's from 100 completely new people. And that happens over and over again. Well, that might be exciting, but you're not necessarily accomplishing your business objective, which is to attract people to work with you, right? So by having themes or by having pillars, sure, maybe those topics aren't going to resonate with as many people. So maybe you're getting 50 likes instead of 100, but it's from the same people and they keep coming back, right? And what that does is allows you to actually build a real relationship with them. And then guess what? As they build that real relationship with you, they're going to help you attract other people because they're going to go out and they're going to tell their network, right? So I think that's one aspect of this that's really powerful.
Nick, I wanted to bring up, there was 2 people on the Facebook chat. Said, wouldn't it be cool if you guys filled the calendar up and let us know exactly what to post? So I'm going to just unshare your screen again. Okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
And tell you that we already did that. There's no surprise, dude. Every time, I think I show this chart every time we do a webinar, but it doesn't get tiring. It kind of goes around the principles that I have, very similar to what Jeff just said, which is he's got 5 pillars. You can have 4, you can have 3, circulate, right? This is easy. Look, teach, sell, you, advice. It starts all over. Teach, sell, you, advice. Teach, sell, you, all month. This is 30 days or 31 days. I don't know what I did. But it tells you exactly what to do based for real estate. You could use it all for video. You could use it all for static posts. You could use it for your stories, whatever you want. The idea is you rotate. Whatever your pillars are, you rotate. And then you make it a pattern. You make it this consistent process. So that's one thing that we're all saying right here, right, Nick? Jeff, it's the same thing. It's a consistency in the pattern that we create for ourselves, no matter what it looks like. But just needed to share that because a couple of people said, well, do you have something like that? And yeah, we do.
It's perfect. So where can they get a hold of that, Tristan?
You know, dude, we're going to release it onto LCA Elements over the next 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
And we're going to put a link up to there. And I know you've got a really, really long one for a year. Was it a year one? Right?
We do have that somewhere. Yeah.
It's a little different than ours, but I love how you created that as well. So yeah, well, you can get it through both.
Cool.
Right?
Yeah. So we'll probably share that with, we're going to give people an option to sign up for the email list here in a minute. And that would probably be the best way to hear more about those kinds of things. So as Jeff mentioned, I mean, I think we don't really need this slide at this point. I think we've kind of hammered this to death at this point, but obviously choosing your pillars, having your themes, having something you can keep going back to, is obviously a universal rule that we all follow. So I did want to show this, since we're about halfway through at this point. If you like this kind of content, if you're trying to learn more about using video in your business and it's a focus of yours, you know, through the Business Video School, we created a series of it's at least 14. I think we've got another 7 or 8 that we've already put together. But if you sign up on this list, what's going to happen is every day for 2 weeks, you're going to get a free tip on using video. So we're not really promoting anything in those tips. We're just trying to teach you, because obviously the ultimate thing we're promoting is the Business Video School. But you get 14 of those, and then after that, pretty much once a week, you're going to get an additional free video tip. So we made enough to give you 2 solid weeks worth, and then we haven't been able to make, you know, a new video every single day for this, but we've got at least one a week that will come out. So if you want to sign up for it, there's 2 ways to do it. You can either just go to that URL at the bottom, bit.ly/freevidtips. That's probably the easiest way to do it if you're on a computer. But if you have a cell phone, you want to do it that way, you can just text all one word, and this needs to be learn video without the quotes. That's why we highlighted it. So it's LEARNVIDEO. You need to send that as the body of a text message to the phone number 44222. All right, so nothing else in it, no spaces, no quotes, just learn video. It will respond and it'll ask for your email, and that's how you start receiving those tips. All right, so just something you can do. And again, you can use that URL if that's a little bit easier. So okay, so we gave you kind of some rules to follow. That's all great, but obviously, you know, there's a lot of questions about like, what should I be talking about? What are some ideas for videos, which is fair. So now we're going to shift to that a little bit. So we're going to talk about just giving you a whole list of ideas, whole bunch of ideas on what you could be doing in your videos, okay? So in a lot of ways, what you're going to see over the next 6-7 slides here, they're going to fall into one of these 2 categories you see on the screen. And I think you want to have kind of a blend of these 2 kinds of videos. So there's evergreen and then there's timely. And all that means is evergreen content is just content that you could share on pretty much any day, any time of the year, and it's going to be relevant, right? So, you know, for instance, like, you know, what is title in the real estate process, right? Like that's going to be always relevant. Doesn't really matter when it is. Timely content is going to be something that is relevant during a particular window of time, right? So your best example of that would be news. Anything that's news right now, in honestly, sometimes in 12 hours, but you know, you're definitely within a couple days, it's not really relevant anymore, or people have already heard it, right? So news, announcements, you know, stuff that's maybe seasonal even can be somewhat timely. So if you want to make a holiday-based video, it's only going to be relevant around that time of year. But what you want to do, in our opinion, is basically try to have a blend of the 2, right? If everything you ever do is timely, it's just a lot of work, right? Like every day you're having to come up with new ideas for stuff, versus if everything you ever make is evergreen, you're not going to benefit from the timely nature of putting something out that catches a trend, right? So you want to try to have kind of a blend of these 2, and the topics we're going to show you over these next few slides should fall into both categories, okay? All right, so we're gonna move through this. This is the point where I want you to be thinking back to the first half and thinking, okay, I've got my ideal customer in mind. I've got the people that I want to attract, and I'm looking for pillars. Okay, so you maybe even have a couple ideas for the themes for your pillars. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to give you a whole bunch of different kinds of videos that you can be making in your business. Every single one of these formats has been shown to be good at getting people to engage, to like and comment and share and all that kind of stuff. But just because that's happened doesn't mean that your version is automatically going to perform, right? So it's really important that you're thinking about that ideal customer when you're picking from these lists. And so I want you to, get in that mindset, kind of thinking of that ideal person. And then I'm going to go through each of these. And then if you see one that you think, again, it's not about you, it's about them, that you think your audience is going to find interesting or exciting, I want you to write it down. Okay. So hopefully at the end of this, you've got anywhere from 3 to maybe 5 kind of video structures or ideas that you can be using. Okay. So the first category I want to talk about is educational videos. And I think educational videos are, they're one of the easiest to do because generally you're talking about things that you already understand. You're basically just sharing your existing knowledge. And they also tend to be easy to make because these are the topics where you're going to feel pretty confident. So if you want to talk about kind of hacking the system and being able to look and sound good on camera, if the topic you're focusing on is something you are comfortable and confident in, you're probably going to do a better video, right? So just a few examples here. A big one, especially if you want to get on YouTube, is going to be how-to videos. I think the searches for how-to and then blank and all kinds of different types of searches, how-to is being searched 70% more every year on YouTube, right? So every year it's almost doubling the amount of searches there. People are asking how to do certain things, right? So how-to videos would be great content really anywhere, but YouTube in particular. But do not limit yourself just to business topics. This is where you can start, really diving into those themes. If you have, maybe it's a hobby or a sport that you're super into, compared to most people, you're an expert at that thing, right? So doing a how-to video there could be really useful. And those can be as in-depth or as shallow as you want them to be. If you're on YouTube, you might want to go a little bit more in depth. The goal there is whatever the question is, if they say how to, whatever that answer, you just want to make sure you give them a thorough answer so they stick around and actually watch the whole video. If you're doing a social video, you might want to go more surface level because you're going to want to get people something that's a little bit shorter, a little bit more digestible. Common FAQs. So I think FAQ videos are awesome. Whatever the questions are that you get very frequently in your business, making a video answer to each of those, and I would do them one at a time. Number one, it's awesome content for internally in your business. It's going to save you a lot of time. Whenever somebody has that question, you shoot them over that video and you're done. But they're also great content for social media. I mean, these are questions that all kinds of people are going to have on a regular basis. So that's a great way to do it, is to make one-off videos there. But you can also go an extra step. You can go live and do essentially a Q&A type show, right? So you're basically maybe start with several questions that you've gotten from people ahead of time. So you have content to start talking about. Go live, answer those first few questions for the first 5 or so minutes. That's going to give some people some chance to jump on, and then they can start asking you further questions. That's a great way to do this. I really like live video content. Live video is growing by far faster than any other kind of video content online right now. Another one that's really kind of educational in nature is myths and misconceptions. So what are those myths that people have? I mean, one that I've seen perform really well in real estate is talking about the down payment. People thinking that you're going to need to have 20% every single time. Sometimes you do, but obviously there's lots of cases where you don't. So I've seen actually multiple real estate agents have a video around that topic that's performed really well. But just what are, people are afraid of messing up, right? Like fear is a very powerful motivator. So what are those misconceptions or myths that might be tied to fears people have, and address them? And obviously the hook for that video would always be making sure to mention the myth or the misconception right at the top of the video, and then give them the answer in the rest of the content. And then Nick, another format. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just chime in there really quick?
Yeah.
In regards to, I just want to show how easy it is to grab common or frequently asked questions. Mm-hmm. And I need to stop sharing yours.
That's fine, man.
I'm going to go, and I'm just going to go to Google just to show what you can do here. I typed in common questions asked when purchasing real estate, right? Click enter. and you can literally scroll for pages and just take the first ones, 15 best questions to ask when buying a house from Bankrate. Grab that. All right, let's go. What's my total budget, right? Each one of these can be a 2 to 3 minute, hopefully 3 to 5 minute video. Is the home in a flood zone? Why is that important? Why is the seller leaving? Things you should ask. What's included in the sale? How old is the roof? Should I be asking that? Why is that important, right? And then if you want to make it into really small, shorter content for TikTok, you can definitely do that here. How much have homes sold for in the neighborhood, right? How do we find that out? So look, just Google that. Super easy to do. And you can get so many ideas to fill that sheet out that we showed through Facebook as well.
Yeah, great point. Great point. That's definitely, I mean, yeah, Google's your friend, right? I mean, YouTube, like we talked about how to and YouTube, and Google owns YouTube, right? And YouTube's just another one of Google's search engines. So obviously, if you're poking around on Google and it's a top ranked response there, it's probably going to be a top ranked video. So good stuff.
Hey, Nick, if I can answer. So Carly had a question about getting overwhelmed with, the rotation of content, what to post on what platforms. Carly, there's no right or wrong answer to this, but I can tell you what I do. And I regularly share across 5 different platforms. So it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's LinkedIn, it's YouTube, and it's TikTok. Now, like YouTube and TikTok are very distinct, unique platforms where you're creating typically content very specific to those platforms. But when it comes to Instagram and Facebook, for example, a lot of my personal content, I just duplicate back and forth because I just realized that there's a lot of my audience that only spend time on Instagram, and there's a lot of the audience that only spend time on Facebook. Also, remember, it's non-invasive. You're not going to annoy someone just because you posted the same thing on both platforms. They can scroll right by you if they want. So I don't overthink that. I just share because I feel like here's one thing I can guarantee. If I don't share anything, I'm not going to get anything in return. I'm not going to get any engagement. Nobody's going to remember me, etc. So I feel like I have nothing to lose by sharing my life more often on those platforms. And a lot of it is duplicated, and I just don't overthink it. If it's relevant to the platform, I share it.
Cool.
Yeah. I have to answer a question too. We're never going to let you finish, Nick, but here we go.
It's just a list of ideas. Anybody could read it, right?
So Linda's asking, do you know from the example that you gave from Bankrate, if I copy and pasted from Bankrate or wherever, you have to get permission to do so. Look, if you're going to copy word for word into an actual blog or anything like that, yes, you'd have to just say at the bottom, put a link to where you got it from. That's how easy it is. And you have to just give them that feedback and say, hey, I got this from there. It's not my original content. But if you're going to go and do a video about it, you don't have to, because then it's your words. What you could say is, maybe if you're going to take this seriously, and let's say you're going to post to Facebook every day and you've outlined it, because I suggest that we stick to one platform first until you get really good at it.
Right.
You're going to post to Facebook every day and you've outlined that, like the next 10 videos of what you're going to do and say, then you can easily say, hey, look, guys, I was reading an article in Bankrate and I noticed that a question kept on coming up, and that's this. So let's talk about that. And I'll show you exactly how I would approach it. And then you can go into that, right? It's giving you more authority, saying that you saw it somewhere else that has an authority, right? I was reading the Wall Street Journal. I was reading today on USA Today. I was reading an article in The Economist, right? So that just can only make you look even better. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and one thing I want to just reiterate that you said, Tristan, it's a great point, is just start with one platform. I think we dealt with that all the time with clients that come in and be like, oh, I want to have my stuff everywhere. And I'd be like, well, which one of those do you actually spend any time on? And for most people, especially when you're newer to this stuff, it's usually just 1 or maybe 2 platforms. So I think it's easy to get yourself all kind of tied up thinking you got to be everywhere. And you're going to get a lot more results just by being consistent, but in 1 or 2 places instead of going everywhere. So, all right, got a couple more lists to run through, just some more ideas for you. The next category we have is behind the scenes. So this is basically, the kind of stuff that you're showing people aside of your life or another business or organization's day-to-day life that they might not get to see. And you would be surprised what people will find interesting. So even if you think your typical day-to-day is not all that exciting, people are curious, right? I mean, basically, if it's something that we kind of don't have permission to see, we're still curious, right? Even if that job is ultimately not all that exciting most of the time, right? So just think about, what are you doing on a daily basis that you can just start documenting. That's what's cool about behind the scenes stuff, is a lot of it's just kind of holding the camera in one hand and going about your business, with the other hand, so to speak, So, set up a tripod, kind of. I know Jeff does a lot of this, just kind of documenting what you're doing throughout the day. And then, you got to do some editing on that. So that's maybe a little bit more advanced. Might want to have an editor you can work with if you're doing vlogging or, documenting events. But that kind of stuff does tend to perform really well. A really big one that I love is just community stuff, So getting out in the community and showing, getting permission to show people a side of an event or a business that they don't normally see. I mean, if you show up, well, don't just show up, but if you reach out ahead of time with the camera, right? So
that would be kind of awesome content, Nick.
Well, I mean, it depends on how gutsy you are. I guess you just want to show up and start rolling, right?
Yeah, that would be hilarious. This is okay. So, guys, I'm going to show up to my client's house unannounced. Here we go. Film rolling. Go.
Yeah, it's probably not legal. So yeah, you're going to have to blur a lot of that video out, right?
So good.
But you get the idea, which, I mean, honestly, if you're going to help promote something, people will give you amazing access. I mean, you can get free tickets to events. You can get into places you never thought you'd get to see, just because you're going to share that information with the community and you're going to make them look good. So there's all kinds of opportunities there. I mean, honestly, especially right now when the economy is trying to kind of get restarted, so to speak, if you can help some local businesses by doing some features on them, they're really going to appreciate that. I mean, a small favor from your end will return many times back because they're going to be out there promoting you and singing your praises as a result. And then obviously an obvious no-brainer one is do a tour of a home. We put down luxury home in this case because I think obviously people get really excited about seeing very fancy houses that they probably can't afford themselves versus just seeing a run-of-the-mill house. So, get an opportunity to do a luxury tour. That might be a cool thing, even if you're not typically a luxury agent. That moves on to, we touched on this a little bit already, but local videos, so I think this is one of those pillars that almost every real estate agent should have, right? I mean, you should have a theme or a pillar that in some form ties in your local community, because that's how you get your business, right? I mean, you probably have certain parts of town where you tend to attract more business than others. So a really, really cool opportunity here is be the first one to break news, but focus on really local news, right? So like things that are happening like just in the local school district or, local businesses. Like, I mean, you can call up City Hall and there's all kinds of information you can get from, local organizations, the Chamber of Commerce, things like that. I mean, you can make a video about the businesses that are opening in your community that month. People are going to love that stuff. The more personalized this kind of content feels, generally the better it does. And again, it's about getting engagement from the right people. So if you're getting engagement from the people that live in your farm area or the people that live in your town, that's obviously substantially more valuable than getting engagement from just any random stranger anywhere across the planet, right? So this kind of stuff is going to be very, very likely to get engagement from the right people. So news is big, upcoming events. I mean, honestly, there's all kinds of places you can, but just like what Tristan was saying with mentioning that you found information on another site, there's all kinds of sites that are sharing upcoming local events in your area. I mean, heck, even Facebook has a lot of this stuff listed. Just go find 3 or 4 and just do a rundown of them. You can even just show the event on Facebook. Just do like a screen capture of it and talk about it, right? And again, you probably want permission from the people running those events to talk about it, but that's a good thing. Then they're going to reciprocate. They're going to share that video, right? They're going to tell people to use you. And then the final local one that I would mention that definitely performs well is interviewing or profiling local leaders. So think about, local politicians, local principals, popular local business owners. I very rarely see any of these people turn down these opportunities. I think there will be a point in the future where all this kind of stuff becomes so common and popular that your local mayor might not want to sit down with every person that wants to do a video. But right now, there's not many people doing it yet, right? So they're still saying yes, and you can actually create some really cool content based on that.
There's a really good question by Richard. Dude, Richard, you're on here. Richard's on our team, by the way. That's cool. Thanks for being on, Richard. Appreciate you. He says, do you need to have people sign a release form for any type of a film? And yes, you do. You can go on Google and there are a couple of one-pagers you can get on there. I know Rev has one. The last time I checked on there, let me see if it's there right now. Yep, it's still there. Let me put up the link. You just have to be part of their email campaign. And so let me put that link right there. Guys, really good question. I just threw it at everybody there on the chat box. So take a look at that one. Just had to interrupt there, Nick.
No, that's a great question, because that is really important. I mean, obviously, if someone agrees to be in your video, they're going to agree to sign your waiver. But technically, until they sign your legal document saying they gave their permission, you don't have a record of it. So that is really important to get people to sign off. And that honestly goes, it does vary state to state, but even people that are in the background of your video, if their face shows up, you really should have their permission. So just keep that in mind. If you're out in public and you're filming, there's lots of people around, you probably want to rethink your shot angles and stuff like that to avoid getting in any trouble there. Okay, so next category we got, and you see if there's anything here you like, is where we're calling like kind of cause-related videos, or videos that maybe have more of a point to be made. So a really big one is nonprofit feature videos. So same kind of thing we were just talking about, but specifically nonprofits or charities. Getting out there, interviewing the founder or the person, the director or whatever you call the person that runs a nonprofit, right? But that's a great one. You can even tie, so you can then post it on Facebook in particular, and you can tie a donate button to it. So that's really cool, right? Because you can actually, we've done some campaigns where we ran a paid ad and we raised more money for the charity than we spent on the ad. And then obviously that customer looked awesome because they're out there raising money for a worthwhile charity versus promoting their business, right? So that was really cool. Rant videos. So this one, you got to be, you got to be the kind of person that this makes sense for. But one of the kinds of videos that does tend to get a lot of attention is when somebody just gets on camera and starts ranting, right? So you're going to want to bring a lot of energy. You don't want to sound like you're just complaining. You want to have a point that you're making. But these can do really well. I did one of these.
Just think of Gary V. Everybody think of Gary V.
Right. Like every video he does.
Biggest ranter on earth. And
true.
Look what he does.
It's a great point. I mean,
just remember, if you're going to be ranting about things like politics, you're likely to lose half of your audience, the ones who disagree with you. So just be careful what you rant about.
Right. The rants they're like surgical tools within your marketing, because they're going to really attract the people that agree, and they're very much going to push away the people that don't. An example, I've not done many of these, but I did do one where I ranted about how much it bothers me when people show up like 20 minutes or more late to a meeting. And actually I had less people showing up that late to meetings after that for some reason. So who knows, maybe that actually works, right? And then the final one would just be sort of a combination of those two previous, but a mission-based video. So basically where you're kind of ranting, but you're more appealing, right? So you're basically talking about something that you really believe in a more positive way. So rant video is kind of the negative spin. Something that's a little bit more mission-based would be, maybe you have a particular cause that you're trying to champion, and you're making more of an argument for it, as opposed to a rant, which would be kind of the opposite, where you're arguing against something. So those are all pretty impactful. And in this category, we called anticipation videos. I don't know that term makes a ton of sense for all three of these, but the idea here is the kinds of videos where you're kind of anticipating something that's going to happen later in the video. So obviously giveaways is a great example. Those can perform very well, but where you're going to do some sort of drawing or raffle or something, and obviously the couple minutes you have before you draw the name, you can kind of build up the excitement and wait for people to, keep them entertained. Obviously you want to be talking, but you can kind of build the excitement for the drawing and get more people to watch it. That'd be a great live video, for instance. Another version is unboxing. I'm always blown away, like how much people like unboxing videos. So like there's I think the top paid YouTuber is like some kid who does unboxing videos and then does reviews of toys. And so like half the video is just like basically watching him unpack the toy. And people love this stuff. I mean, there's that anticipation of kind of like, the what's in the box, like you're excited to see what's coming out of it. And so reviews, product reviews, and then kind of combining that with unboxing. And then like fail or cringe videos. These are apparently really popular on TikTok. But where, obviously anything where you're expecting to see somebody be embarrassed.
That would be insane, dude.
Right.
You just give me an idea. So if this whole world turns around and we get a lot of more foreclosures and you're an REO agent, I would love to follow REO agents and be like, oh, hey guys, we're going to go into this house and I don't know what's inside.
Right.
Follow me in. Let's take a look. Right. That would be fun to watch.
That would be fun. Yeah. So hopefully we don't get back to that point, but if we do, there's some good content there for sure. I mean, that's like home inspectors. Like I know a ton of home inspectors that have like thousands of followers just because of that, right? Because like the crazy stuff they find in houses, they just show it to people. And, again, you probably want permission to do that kind of thing, but that definitely performs very, very well.
Nick, you're talking about Ryan's World. If anybody's interested, it's called Ryan's World on YouTube. And yes, the kid's worth like $25 million plus. And he started by just opening up and doing reviews on toys. Craziness.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy what they enjoy, right? Okay, so we're getting to the end here of our list, but one of the last categories, is entertaining people, right? I mean, obviously, so here's the thing, right? I wanted this to be toward the end of this list because I think too many people think that they have to go this direction, especially right at the beginning. Like they see what other people are doing, they think, oh, I got to be really funny, or I need to make that music parody video that's going to go viral and get 100,000 views or whatever. And these are all really great tools. But unless this is natural for you, unless you're the kind of person that really likes performing and entertaining people, I wouldn't dive into these right away. I would kind of leave these towards the point where you get a little bit more comfortable. But they are great, right? I mean, obviously, parody videos, especially if you're using TikTok, like you have access to a lot of music tracks and things like that you didn't on other platforms. So that's a great place to experiment with it. Doing like comedy sketches. I mean, again, you got to be somebody that wants to do this stuff, and this is going to be something that appeals to your audience. But that can definitely be a good one. So if you have some ideas, this is where you want to start thinking about collaborating with people. I think a lot of the best comedy videos are actually more than one person kind of working together in a lot of cases. So could be a cool opportunity to work with some of your referral partners or people in your brokerage and put something together there that's funny. And honestly, sometimes the best ones are the ones that really aren't that funny, but they're trying to be funny, and it ends up being like really awkward, and then people love that because it's a cringe video at that point. So sometimes you can swing for the fences and miss, but still end up getting a video that people like. And then finally would just be, we call them talent videos. So things where you have a hidden talent and you're performing. One of my favorite examples of this was, I believe it was a lender, and he was in a house with an agent he works with, and it was completely empty. The house was hardwood floors, completely vacant, and they were in this big room, so their voices were just like booming, echoing off the walls. And so it turned out he was actually a really good singer, so he used that to his advantage, and he like sung some aria or something, some sort of beautiful piece of music. People loved it, right? I mean, you got tons and tons of engagement on that. So showing people talents that you have, but maybe they don't know you have. I mean, that's obviously a really great way to continue building that relationship with your sphere and with the people that are following you. So, all right, so that's our list. Okay, so I gave you, I think it's at least 6 different pages of different kinds of videos. But again, the whole point is not to take all of those and try to do all of them. It's to have picked a few that make the most sense for your audience. So that would be hopefully the outcome that you got to at this point. So to wrap things up here, I do want to give you some more kind of just places you can find ideas. So we talked at the beginning about evergreen versus timely, and a lot of the stuff we just went through is probably on the evergreen side. So if you want to pursue the timely options, this is just a bunch of stuff that we've recommended in the past that you can use to find what's trending, okay? So BuzzSumo is a tool that tracks shares. So it tells you basically what's the stuff that's getting shared the most on social media right now. That's going to be a great place to find trending topics, because if people are sharing it, obviously they're going to be timely topics. Reddit. So I don't know, how many of you use Reddit currently, but Reddit is a very great place to find information, because in a lot of ways, Reddit, they call it the front page of the internet, but it's where news kind of gets started, or, and it actually tends to trend on Reddit sometimes a few hours and sometimes even a day or two before it tends to trend on other platforms. So if you get into the subreddits and you find the subreddit on the themes that you're using as your pillars, and just live on those things, check them every day. And as something starts to trend on that subreddit, get a video out there about that topic, and you'll actually be one of the first people to do so. You've got your more traditional kind of news sites like BuzzFeed, there's just all kinds of news and trending quizzes and things like that there. Medium. It's articles, so Medium has their trending articles feature where you can see just what's popular, what are the topics people are enjoying. And then finally, I like Quora as well. Quora is just a place that people can post questions and they can be answered by anybody on the internet. One of the cool parts of Quora is that when they first got started, they made a big effort to have a lot of celebrities answering questions. And so you can see answers from some pretty impressive, famous people on there. And a lot of the answers are actually ranked by from like worst to best. And so people really kind of compete to give the best, most in-depth answers on there. And so a lot of times you'll find insights or points that you can make in your videos that you weren't necessarily going to see elsewhere, and coming from people that are very established, high level types. So just some ideas on places that you can find some content. And then finally, one of the last things I want to mention here is just don't be afraid to ask for the engagement. I think this is an aspect of this that people really overlook, is that people will do what you ask them to do, right? I mean, that's the whole point of a call to action. So don't be afraid to specifically ask for comments. I think that's one of the main things that you can ask for, is get people to comment on your video. So kind of things you can do to make that happen is ask questions. So, like I obviously did that in this webinar as just an example, but, like ask a question in your video at the end, say, hey, here's what I just talked about. What do you think? What would you do in this case, or whatever it is? Let me know in the comments, right? So that's going to encourage engagement. You can ask them to share it. That's obviously pretty common. One that I also really like is tag someone else who could benefit from seeing this video, right? So that, think about that in a business perspective. If you're going to say that at the end of a video that was about what you do for a living, and you get somebody to tag their friend saying, hey, you need to hear this, that's obviously going to be a pretty strong connection and a prospective lead for you. And then the final thing I'll say about the engagement and the comments on this stuff is you have to respond to it, okay? That's also very important here. And I think this is a huge missed opportunity for a lot of us right now, is you got to treat a comment almost like you would treat a lead, okay? So a comment is not automatically a lead, but it can develop into one. So if somebody comments on your video, get back to them as fast as you can. Try to respond within just a couple minutes, but certainly as fast as you can, and then try to get that conversation to continue. So if all they said was like, great video, then you can just say thank you, but maybe you can say thank you and say, oh, by the way, it's been a while, how you doing, and then get them to respond. And so anybody that takes the effort to leave a comment on a piece of your content, they are willing to have more of a conversation in a lot of cases, right? So use that as a way to ask a further question, get them to go back and forth. That's going to tell the algorithm to show your video to more people, but it's also where you're going to get your business. So with video, that's what I tell people, is like, you got to think about the comments as the beginning of conversations that can lead to business. So when you get a comment, try to get back to that person, try to keep the conversation going. And if you get a comment chain where they're replying, you're replying, and you go back and forth a few times, then you can try to move it elsewhere. So you can say, hey, this is a great conversation. Why don't we grab coffee soon? Or, hey, this is great. Why don't we jump on a Zoom call, which is probably more likely right now, right? So just some ideas on, it's great to get the engagement, but you definitely need to be using the engagement, right? So, and actually, I probably should have jumped over to this slide a little bit sooner, because it's basically just repeating what I said. But that's the key, right? Is you just got to make sure you're staying in touch with people and continuing to build the relationship with them.
Yeah, Nick, I will say this, man. You guys, I'll drive this home. If you are creating content and you're not engaging your audience, you're completely defeating the purpose. And that is so integral, to engage your audience, which is exactly what the algorithm wants to see. I know I keep saying it, but that's the whole name of the game. So engage, engage, engage.
Cool. Well, I think that was, I've got some information about the school, which we can cover. I think
please give it to them. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, obviously we're right at what's supposed to be the scheduled end of this. So if you do need to get going, I understand that. But basically, if you have been watching this webinar, if you've been through any of the previous ones, I think this is like number 6 or 7 at this point. We have been talking off and on about the Business Video School. So the Business Video School is a program we started about 6 months ago. At this point, I think we have about 150 students enrolled. The past 2 classes that we have been promoting through Lab Code Agents and through these webinars have both filled up, okay? So at this point, we have a class that starts in, I believe, 3 weeks. There's obviously plenty of seats left in it. But I just want to talk about what the school is for just a couple minutes. And then if you have any questions, you can obviously ask us at the end here. But the idea behind the Business Video School is that we wanted to create a program where especially real estate agents, really intended for real estate agents, but really any small business owner, any business professional could learn to start communicating in their business using video. And the one thing that we don't like about a lot of online training is the idea that you're just going to take a bunch of classes that I give you and go do them on your own, right? For some people, that's great. Sometimes it works, and a lot of times it doesn't. So what we decided to do in this program is we actually do it as a class, okay? So this is really meant for the kind of person that wants accountability and that likes the idea of learning to use video across their business with their peers, right? So the structure is every single week we have a class. It's at a set time and on a set day. So it's a repeated schedule that you can get very familiar with, which is also what we're doing with these webinars moving forward, right? And you're going to watch the class with your peers, and you have the ability to ask questions, right? So they can ask questions. You can see the responses to their questions. You can ask questions. It's very engaged. We do a lot of exercises. And then at the end of each training, we also have a homework project that is something you can use in your business. So you're actually making content throughout the trainings that you can use in your business, right? So we're not just making you do busy work to learn a skill. We're basically combining the repetitive busy work that helps you learn the skill with making videos for your business. So at the end of 12 weeks, it's not quite 12 videos, but in most cases, you're gonna have anywhere from 6 to 10 different videos that you can use in your business that you could be posting the entire time. So this stuff's really meant to be hands-on. It's really meant to be interactive. Just a couple quotes from students who have been going through it over the past couple weeks. These are pretty cool testimonials in my opinion. So this one, talks a lot about, Becky talks about the fact that we're obviously watching a lot of training stuff right now as we're all kind of stuck at home. But this is one where she actually found herself creating video that she can use right away, and that the explanations are clear and understandable. Definitely recommends the course. That's something I take a lot of pride in, is that the educational process, we really try to make sure we're covering all our bases. We try to be as clear and patient with the way that we teach this content as possible, and then make sure people are getting a chance to practice and exercise it. And then another review that we got from Janice recently, that she's getting a ton of ideas, got some value out of the editing class. And it's really, this is the big thing, right? Is that we're really encouraging and challenging people to step out of their comfort zone and make videos. I mean, that's the key. Is if you're learning to do something, but you're not actually practicing it as you go, you're probably not going to be picking it up very efficiently, right? Anyway, so that's just a quick overview of the school. If you want more information, what I would do is I would just go to bizvideoschool.com. If you got a couple minutes right now, you can check it out. The price for the class, we kind of actually, we had to bring this down a little bit to $97 per month when we came to Jeff and Tristan here and talked about bringing it to the Lab Code Agents group, because they wanted to get you guys obviously the best deal possible. So it is $97 a month. The initial class is 3 months. So basically it's about $300 for the first 3 months. It's going to get you through our video 101 basics. You're going to learn how to shoot video with your phone, how to come up with topics for your video. We gave you kind of a sample of that today. We're going to teach you how to do some editing. We're going to teach you what equipment to buy. We're going to teach you how to put your videos up on the internet, how to load them correctly on all the different sites, how to promote them, and ultimately how to start attracting business from making that content. And then that's kind of the beginning of the school, right? So the first 3 months, that's video 101. That's obviously where almost every single person needs to get started, but we are continuing to develop more classes. So we are going to have additional courses that you can go through as the school continues to develop. So things like, specifically a course on TikTok. That's one we've gotten a lot of questions about, doing a deep dive on YouTube and how to build out your channel and develop a following on there. Using video to train your team. I mean, that's a really big one that I think is going to save everybody a lot of time in the long run, is being able to use video for your training purposes. So there's just a couple teaser ideas, but that's the idea behind the school, is that we want to really work with people hands-on to help them start using video. And then once we get down the road, you're going to have additional classes that you can add. So one last time, if you do want more information, just go to bizvideoschool.com. The next class is going to start in 3 weeks on Thursdays, and it's going to be at 12 Central Time. So as you can see listed there, that's 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Mountain Time. Yeah, so you can go check it out right now if you're curious, and then you can get signed up. We do have plenty of spots in that class, but I do know that the past 2 classes have sold out. So if you want to go ahead and get registered today and just get your place reserved, what I'd recommend is get registered for the class, sign up for our tips list. So you'll get 2 weeks of free tips in the meantime. And by that point, you'll be pretty much ready for orientation, and we'll be up and running. So yeah, I'll hang around for a few more minutes. If anybody has any questions about the class or about any of the content we covered today, I'd be happy to answer those.
Hey, Nick, Linda wants to know if you train or do 360 tours of homes, for homes, or what company do you know will do them or train to do it?
So 360-degree video type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We will. So that's not something we cover in our video 101 class, because I think 360 is a little bit more advanced, but it is something that keeps coming up. So we will be making some training content around it. It's not something that we offer to do, but I do know that, I guess, Linda, if you want to let us know what city you're in, because that's really what it's going to depend on, if we know somebody there that can do it or not. And if I do, I'll let you know, but that's going to depend on where you're located.
Eileen asks if the instructors are available outside of class hours. I assume you're talking about the video school instructors. Nick, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, it's a good, I actually forgot to mention that. So every week, in addition to the class, you also have a Q&A session where you can come on and ask your individual questions, and we can answer. It's basically first come, first serve. So whoever's on there first gets their answers first. And then you have access to the trainers throughout the group at any time. So we're not in there at all times. So we're not necessarily going to respond instantaneously. But you do have access to ask any of your questions through the group. And then one of our trainers will get back in touch with you. And there's 4 of us currently. So there's a lot of people available to answer your questions. The only thing you're not going to get through the class, because if we did this, it would just have to be a lot more expensive, is like a lot of one-on-one coaching. So we're not going to set up like entire hour-long coaching sessions with you necessarily. But that is something, if you want to pay a little bit extra, you do have access to. So you can ask questions during the training. You can get on the Q&A to get direct answers. You can post your questions in the group. And then finally, if none of that helps solve your problem, we do have available consulting hours. But usually everybody's stuff is addressed by those first 3.
Good stuff, man. That's all we got. I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you guys for being on again today. This has been another fantastic hour of content. And remember, we mentioned this in the beginning, every Thursday, same time, same place. Looking forward to doing it again next week, fellas.
Cool.
Love it, guys.
All right, man. Have a good rest of the week, guys. Good weekend. See ya.
See ya.